Vítám vás u dnešního videa, kde si společně koukneme na to, co dělají matchfixeři po tom, co se jim ukončí kariéra, po tom, co na ně přijdou. Kdybyste se ptali, co je matchfixer, znamená to, že ovlivňujete zápasy jinak, než byste měli. Pojďme na to. Tak, zase super video, tenhle týpek dělá super video, like, budete to mít samozřejmě v komentářích, jdeme na to.
You guys really enjoyed the last video about cheaters, so today we're looking at the other side of the coin, matchfixers. Match fixing in sports is often an illegal practice, but in esports, match fixing is in somewhat of a gray area. While it's obviously morally wrong, it's nearly impossible to apply actual law to esports given its international nature. So it begs the question, what do match fixers do after being caught?
No legit, já nechápu, jak tahle věc ještě nemůže být takhle neřešená. Jako upřímně, protože je spousta hráčů a bavíme se o tom tady už milionkrát, který matchfixovali, vydělali miliony. Potom jenom a už nemůžeme matchfixovat, it is what it is.
Today we're answering that by looking at the biggest match fixing scandals in Counter-Strike, so let's not waste any more time.
Ooh.
The iBuyPower match fixing scandal back in 2015 was something that turned the entire Counter-Strike scene on its head. Not only was iBuyPower the strongest team in a fragile North America, but they were also the highest profile team to ever be involved in match fixing.
Jenom tady bych chtěl říct jednu věc, já když nad tím tak jako přemýšlím, 2015 není tak dávno, aspoň pro mě, jenom jsem si uvědomil, že na mě koukají lidi, kterým je třeba 12, takže jim reálně byly třeba 4 roky v době, kdy iBuyPower udělali tenhle skandál, což je šílený si uvědomit. A jsem starý, ano.
It all started on August 21st, 2014 in a match between iBuyPower and Netcode Guides. Netcode Guides was a fairly decent team, but iBuyPower was still the heavy favorites for this match.
Tahle stránka mě odnaučila gamblit, dámy a pánové.
But you would have never guessed that, as Netcode Guides stomped iBuyPower 16-4, with iBuyPower looking exceptionally terrible the entire game.
But iBuyPower is definitely not playing like iBuyPower.
The usual accusations of match fixing were tossed around by angry bettors after this match, but they were quickly given some validity. A report by Richard Lewis showed leaked text messages of one connected player telling another unconnected player that this match was rigged from the start. This initial report was kinda just blown over as a rumor, but following an investigation with CSGO Lounge, Lewis put out his new report on January 16th, 2015, which confirmed the authenticity of the leaked text messages
Prostě ex-přítelkyně ho von zla, chápeš?
and also uncovered a slew of connected accounts playing massive bets against iBuyPower. These accounts connected back to the players, and all in all, they collectively profited around $10,000 in skins. And this is when Valve stepped in like they had never done before. On January 26, Valve announced that Steel, Swag, Dazed, and AZK were all banned from future Valve majors. Skadoodle was the only iBuyPower player that got spared from this ban. It's debated whether or not he was in on the throw, but the reason Skadoodle wasn't banned was because he received no payment for that match. And thank goodness for that. After Valve dropped the ban, the iBuyPower guys were just kind of instantly lost, as most other big tournament organizers mirrored Valve's bans, meaning they had really nowhere to play. They'd gone from major competitors to basically exiled overnight. Small local LANs were the only events that...
Jako upřímně, ano, byl to začátek CSK, ale pokud... Já nevím, jak to říct, mi to nikdy nenapadlo. Jakoby ano, možná byly děti, ale kámo, prostě matchfixing... Proč bys to dělal?
That allowed them in anymore. And Steel, in fact, was so desperate to play that he flew overseas to the UK just to play in some events. The guys spent 2015 just streaming and signing up for LANs where they could. In May, AZK landed a coaching gig, but it only lasted a month. Later in the year, Steel, Dazed, and AZK linked up to win Fragadelphia, and shortly after, Cloud9 brought in Swag as a last-minute substitute for an event which they ended up winning. These wins showed that the guys were still super eager to play, but as long as they were banned by Valve, they were going to be unwanted by tournaments and therefore teams as well. And to make it worse, Valve made their indefinite bans permanent at the start of 2016. But luckily for them, there was something new right around the corner. Overwatch was released in May 2016, and while everybody loved it for its casual gameplay, Steel and AZK saw it as a new opportunity. Both started grinding Overwatch and hoped to make it their new career. For Steel, he landed a contract with Splice, but this was very short-lived, and he quit Overwatch after just a few months. Things went better for AZK though, who was part of Team Liquid for well over a year. Liquid's Overwatch team disbanded in September 2017, but AZK was already sure of his next move. That's because things were changing back in the Counter-Strike landscape.
Okay.
After 2.5 years of mirroring Valve's bans, tournament organizers ESL and ESEA announced that they would no longer bar these players from their events, and DreamHack said the same shortly after. So suddenly, the iBuyPower guys could play in basically everything again besides the majors, which sounds fantastic, but there was still a
Jako upřímně, ono je to hezký, že můžeš hrát cokoliv jiného kromě majoru, na druhou stranu problém je, že tě v životě nevezme žádný tier 1 tým, protože tier 1 tým hrajou majory, takže ono to dost tak slavný není, ale chápu.
massive handicap tied to them.
You're unbanned, bro. Congratulations.
Obviously, the goal of any serious team or player is to make it to the major, so it wouldn't make any sense at all to tie yourself to a player who couldn't play at those. So that's why, despite their skill level and experience, very few were actually interested in playing with the iBuyPower guys. Still though, Steel was able to form his own team called Torqued, and Dazed, who'd been working as a commentator and analyst in 2017, created a team called GX with AZK and Swag. Both teams quickly got some pretty decent results. Steel won a Canadian LAN with his team, while GX nearly qualified for ESL Pro League. At the start of 2018, Dazed went his own separate way with streaming, while Swag and AZK joined Steel on Torqued, where the team's results greatly improved. They qualified for some DreamHack events and again nearly ESL Pro League, but this was all short-lived. You see, according to Steel, one of the problems with the old iBuyPower was that the guys lacked chemistry, and since no serious team would want these Valve-banned players, the guys were basically stuck playing with each other, not because they wanted to, but out of necessity. Not that they hated each other, just they lacked chemistry, and Torqued would soon fall apart. Swag left the team in May 2018, and AZK was kicked the very next day, which marked the end of his Counter-Strike career. The remaining Torqued players were signed by Ghost Gaming, while Swag joined a team called Swole Patrol, and both squads got some exceptionally good results for what they were, playing at many LANs and winning a good deal of money. Both Swag and Steel joined new teams in 2019, and they seem to be doing quite well for themselves, back competing in the top tier of NACS despite their banned status. Dazed and AZK were relegated to just streaming, but like how Overwatch brought new opportunity in 2016, there was again new opportunity right around the corner. Valorant released in 2020, and it absolutely captivated washed Counter-Strike players. Swag and AZK made the jump over and earned contracts from T1. Dazed later joined them as well, and even their old teammate Skadoodle came.
Jsem si překvapený, že někdo jako T1 jako šáhnou po hráči jako je Svek nebo tak, jako chápu, že jsou mega dobrý, ale na druhou stranu upřímně, jako jsem překvapený, že se toho nebojí, ty kontroverze, protože přece jenom matchfixovat je jedna z nejhorších věcí, co můžeš udělat v CSku hned po cheatování, bych řekl. S takovýmhle nožem se nedá nic vyhrát.
Over. Back in CSGO, Steel was still getting exceptional results with his team of Chaos, but he was becoming ever more unsure of his future, and in August 2020, he retired from competitive CSGO to become a full-time Valorant streamer. For the guys on T1, each one left the team at different points in 2021, which marked the end of their playing careers. Steel spent some time playing for 100 Thieves and then even for T1 after the other guys left. But after being dropped in 2023, he was again looking for a change, because Steel revealed that after talking with Valve, his ban would be officially lifted in January 2025, 10 years after it was put in place. He returned to CSGO for the second time, but the team he joined didn't work out very well, so at the age of 33, Steel continued looking for new avenues, and he found them.
That means you have to work shitty tier 3 events as a caster.
Steel had gotten a few jobs before as an analyst or a commentator at CSGO events, but in 2024, this became his full-time objective as he jumped between working on Counter-Strike and Valorant events, and that's what he continues to do to this day. The iBuyPower guys went about getting skins in the wrong way, but if you want to go about it the right way, you should check out Skin Vault. Skin Vault is a site where you can easily and instantly trade, buy, and sell CS2 skins. It's as simple as logging in through Steam, adding your trade link, and then just clicking on the your depository today. A few weeks after the iBuyPower guys got caught, some other teams also got busted for match fixing. One was the high-profile French team of Epsilon, and the other was a lowly Polish team called Olsen, both of which also received lifetime bans from Valve majors. The Poles fixed a single game back in late 2014 and profited over $2,000 from it. But by the time they got punished for this, 3 of the players had already stopped playing the game. But for the 2 remaining players of Michi and Maddie, their lives went on and will cost you a whole lot less than your professional career. So check out Skin Vault at the link down below and upgrade your inventory today. A few weeks after the iBuyPower guys got caught, some other teams also got busted for match fixing. One was the high-profile French team of Epsilon, and the other was a lowly Polish team called Olsen, both of which also received lifetime bans from Valve majors. The Poles fixed a single game back in late 2014 and profited over $2,000 from it. But by the time they got punished for this,
imagine si zničit kariéru kvůli $2000, tam dneska zajvu vydělá za jeden zápas.
3 of the players had already stopped playing the game. But for the 2 remaining players of Michi and Maddie, their lives went on
What? Není to ten Matis FPLC, what the fuck?
Basically unaffected. That's because the level of Counter-Strike they were playing at was so low that making it to a major was probably never possible. So getting banned from them was really nothing lost.
Jasný, to je on, kámo. To je on? To je ten Mati.
The 2 simply continued their playing careers as normal and landed contracts with teams like ESE, Isaac Boers, and EC Brugge. But for the Epsilon guys, it was a rough story, much like the iBuyPower guys, as they were also barely allowed to play in anything. When Overwatch released in 2016, GMX changed his name to Heiko and switched over, where he played competitively until 2018 and then retired. For the remaining players, when tournament organizers started lifting their bans in 2017, they were in the same boat as the iBuyPower guys. All of them had played at majors before and were very capable competitors, but with them being banned from majors, no team that might possibly make it to a major would ever be interested in them. Over the next few years, the biggest name that these guys played for were just small orgs like Vexed, Millennium, and Playing Ducks. In 2019, Biggie transitioned over to a coach and was with Heretics for over a year, but this came to an end when he got caught up in the coaching bug scandal and received a second.
I imagine, že ty jednou podvádíš a cheatuješ. Pak jdeš ještě na kouči a tam děláš to samý. They never learn. They never learn.
Lifetime ban from Valve and ESIC. In 2020, both Uzi and Fixio jumped over to Valorant and had varying degrees of success. Fixio had a short stint with OG, while Uzi didn't really get anywhere. Anyway, both players would hang up their mouses by the end of 2020.
A mě fascinuje, že borec cheatuje, nebo matchfixuje, potom cheatuje, potom jde do Valorantu a znova dostane šanci. Já bych v životě nedal, prostě pokud jsi takhle velká orga, jako je třeba OG, bych v životě nedal šanci tady těm hráčům, protože prostě vidíte to sami, kámo, borec dostane ban, pak dostane unban a pak znova cheatuje, nebo dostane šanci jako coach a znova cheatuje, kámo. Ty lidi, to prostě je v tom člověku, já to říkám pořád, kámo, proto pokud když matchfixuješ nebo cheatuješ, tak máš mít vždycky lifetime ban, vždycky.
2022. So far, we're seeing that match fixing bans can be quite career destroying, but is it possible to maintain a normal career after getting caught? Well, it's dependent on a lot of different things, but the answer is somewhat yes. The bans we've looked at so far were placed by Valve in the early days of CSGO, but things are quite different now. To show that, we're going to look at New Zealand. When it comes to money in Counter-Strike, Oceania is probably the worst off major region as they have very few real organizations or tournaments down there. It's not uncommon for players to have a normal day job for income, and this issue was only exacerbated during the pandemic. During this time, illegal match fixing and betting was running rampant in Australia, and around the end of 2020, ESIC banned 41 different Oceania players for reasons of match fixing and other
Zabadovali třeba půlku té scény tam, kámo.
Betting offenses. Most of these guys were just no names playing in ESEA and stuff, but one of those guilty players has gone on to make quite a name for themselves. Among those banned in 2020 was Netic. Not specifically for match fixing, but for other betting offenses, and it's very important to make the distinction between the two. Match fixing is of course having a bet against yourself and losing on purpose, but betting offenses could be something like having a bet on your own team to win. You might think this sounds fine, you know, like you're betting your own money on your own performance, but this can also involve things like what's called spot fixing, and the water can just get really muddy really fast. Anyway, Netic, who was only 17 at the time, and one of his teammates on Rooster found themselves wrapped up in this kind of betting, and they got busted for it. ESIC handed Netic a 1-year ban for his actions, which was quite short compared to everyone else caught up in this shitstorm. Sometime later, one of Netic's teammates went on interview to give some more details about the situation. He assured that no matches were fixed or thrown, and what happened was simply some stupid teenagers thinking that they could make some extra money on the side.
Like it was just...
Já tady k tobě co řeknu, až tady to video dokoukáme, tak já k tomu řeknu něco, proč si myslím, že se tohle děje a proč si myslím, že tohle se děje možná i v Česku.
80k in Neděli.
No more than a few $100s were involved, and one of their other teammates actually lost money doing this. It was simple stupidity, and Neděli had to be punished for it, but he didn't let his ban discourage him. Some aspiring players completely give up on Counter-Strike if they get banned for a few years, but Neděli only came back stronger. After his ban expired, he bounced around teams like Rooster and Talon, and wherever he went, he was always the best player on the server. And recently, he got picked up by FlyQuest, Australia's flagship team, where he continues his incredible form, and very soon he'll be playing at his first ever major, which also makes him the first player to play at a major after being banned by ESIC. While Neděli got a pretty fair ban for his offenses, some match fixers have gotten away with highway robbery. In 2023, Donk was absolutely the most hyped up young player, but someone else getting quite a lot of attention was a kid named Gokushima. He had a reputation of being an absolute beast in FACEIT, and in June, he was even being targeted by Fnatic. This deal fell through though, and he ended up joining FORZE in October. He was putting up the strong performance that everyone was hoping for and helped the struggling FORZE team get back into the top 30. FORZE was on the climb, but this was all short-lived. Near the end of March in 2024, Gokushima disappeared from the roster without any official statement, and random subs were being used for multiple players every game. Things were clearly going wrong in the FORZE camp, and just a few days later on April 2nd, FORZE benched the entire team. But why exactly? Well, we didn't have to wait long at all for an answer, as just 20 hours later, esports insider Overdrive tweeted that Gokushima had been banned by ESIC for 2 years. And later on April 11th, we got the official...
Jak můžeš dostat ban na 2 roky? Na 2 roky, kámo. To je jak kdyby si vykrat... Pičo, to je jak kdyby si vykrat obchod, vydělal miliony, vykrat banku, vydělal miliony a oni ti řeknou 2 roky nemůžeš vykrat z další banku, brácho.
Statement that his ban was earned through match fixing. His ban actually started back in March, which explains his disappearance, and while he did his match fixing before he was on FORZE, FORZE was now the dead team paying the price. Gokushima vanished into thin air after this, but there was still a big question that people wanted answered. How much money was involved? Because if Neděli got a 1-year ban for playing with a few $100s, then Gokushima's 2-year ban couldn't have been much worse, right? Well, that couldn't have been further from the truth. According to the same insider, Gokushima profited between $300,000 and $400,000 from all of it.
Já dělám YouTube a Twitch, kámo. Jsem měl match fixovat. Já jsem nikdy nematch fixoval, to byla podle mě největší chyba, když nad tím tak přemýšlím.
Match fixing. Close to $500,000 stolen from people and he only has to sit out for 2 years.
Já jsem, že 2 mil, jakoby to je, kámo, to je třeba, si můžeš za to koupit třeba 4 byty v Praze, kámo. Takže reálně, ty kdyby si match fixoval, bez tak ten typek cheatoval, tvůj mešiky, ty si můžeš match fixovat, vydělat si na 4 byty v Praze, pronajímat je do konce života nemusíš nic dělat, kámo.
The length of Gokushima's ban is an absolute joke because others have gotten far worse bans for doing far less.
Yep.
And these events took place over a year ago now, so he only has 10 months left on his ban before he's allowed to return. He was a young and skilled player, so if he really wanted to, he could probably just come back next March and pick up right where he left off. But the thing is that he really has no reason to do that. Again, he made $300,000 to $400,000 from this. I don't know where in Russia Gokushima lives, but he can absolutely live off that money for an incredibly long time, as long as he's not stupid with it. Gokushima had a lot of potential and he traded it for a massive fraudulent paycheck. Such a waste of talent, but he is just one of many CIS players to be involved in such illegal betting. Ganginho was another rising CIS talent in...
To je můj oblíbenec, kámo. Tohle je můj cool, ty kokot. FACEIT, já si pamatuju, když jsem hrál v FPL, kámo, jak úplně FACEIT ho hypoval, kámo, pozval ho na Katovice, že brácho, pojď se podívat, kde jednou budeš hrát. Jo, ty kokot. Borec vždycky, mimochodem tenhle týpek cheatoval, pardon, tenhle týpek vždycky, když prohrával 5-0 v FPLC, guys, I need to restart CS, restart PC, Borec se vrátil za minutu, prohráli jsme 13-5, nebo 16-5. Typek největší mrtka ukrajinská, kámo, která existuje, sorry.
Who'd hopped around teams like Sengal and Bedera. He was actively playing for a team called the
Každý
Next
říkal,
Level
že
when,
cheatuje.
in October 2024,
Každý
Gagino
to říkal.
announced his retirement out of the blue. He was only 23, which is an incredibly young age to be retiring at. Sometimes, though, young players do retire to get involved with university, but Gagino never said what his future plans were after this, so the reason for his retirement was entirely unknown, and the fact that he was actively under contract made it even more curious. Most people forgot about this guy after this, but they were then reminded of him in March 2025, when ESIC gave him a 3-year ban for betting offenses. Now, the reason for his ban was similar to Netix, so not exactly match fixing, but instead that betting on your own team kind of thing. Gagino thought that this was just kind of stupid, like, okay, ESIC is banning a player that's already retired, like, okay. But that kind of reaction also makes it sound like Gagino's retiring was kind of a situation of like, oh, you can't fire me because I quit, especially when you consider that his ban actually started in December 2024, just 2 months after he retired, so he likely knew that ESIC was on his tail anyway. After his ban was announced, Gagino posted some photos of money and a BMW to his Instagram story, basically trying to make it look like he got off like a bandit, but ESIC concluded that from the 390 illegal bets that he placed, he only profited around $20,000 from it, which just makes the whole situation feel goofy. Gagino would have made so much more money just playing out his career normally, and then he tries to flex how he traded his career for comparatively nothing. Gagino didn't fully disappear after this though. He actually went on an hour-long interview with Loba to give some more insight on match fixing in the current CS2 scene. Whether or not you want to believe him is your choice, but he did have some interesting things to say. Essentially, what Gagino says is that many teams and players in Tier 2 and Tier 3 are cheating or match fixing, and basically the whole scene is a can of worms waiting to be opened, but also that it probably won't ever be opened because everybody makes money from it. One of the big names that he brings up is Wonderful, who today is a major winner, but 4 years ago was part of a supposedly match-fixing team. 3 of the players from that team were banned in 2023 for match fixing, with the 2 surviving players being Wonderful and Woro 2K. Gagino says that one...
Kámo, Woro 2K, cheater hovado, šmarja, to je nejhorší je, když víte ten background, že já bych vám hrozně rád řekl, jak to všechno je, protože to by byl příběh, možná to někdy udělám, kde bych prostě líknul všechno, co já jsem kdy slyšel na Czsku, protože když jste v FPLC, kde já jsem byl, nebo v FPL, tak jsou tam takzvaný talkies, jo? Jsou tam takzvaný talky, které jsou třeba ve 2, ve 3 ráno, kdy se sejdou hráči, klidně i třeba jako Flames, jo, z Vitality, a bavíte se tam o všem možným. Bavíme se o tom, kolik vydělávají hráči v Tier 1, takže já třeba vím, kolik vydělává Flames. Bavíte se tam o matchfixingu, jako je to docela crazy, jako já když jsem tam seděl a poslouchal jsem to, samozřejmě vždycky se všichni ujistí, že nikdo nestreamuje a tak dál, ale baví se tam jako o crazy věcech a musím říct, že tam jsem hodně ztratil víru v CSko.
Wonderful was in on the fixing, but by this point, Wonderful was already part of Navi, and banning a player from such a prestigious team would cause too much damage to the scene, so ESIC did nothing. Again, take this with a grain of salt, but he did also give us some more insight on Joel. Joel was a stupid player who was guilty of basically every deplorable act under the sun, including match fixing. According to Gagino, Joel would basically throw on a whim. Supposedly, he had a Telegram group where he'd just shoot off messages like, hey, I'm gonna throw this round, so go bet now, and he'd do this in exchange for a cut of all the money won. And this was just one of the many shitty things that Joel did. So if you want to hear his full story, you can click the video on screen, or one of the other ones because YouTube thinks you'll like it. Let me know your thoughts about these guys and match fixing down in the comments. Like and subscribe.
Opět, kámo, top tier video, já ho dám samozřejmě do popisku a díky moc, že jste koukali, doufám, že jste si video užili. Ještě bych řekl k tomu českému, jo, důvod, proč si myslím, že většina českých týmů taky má nějakého hráče, který může matchfixovat, neříkám kdo, je, že většina těch lidí, kteří matchfixují, jsou závislí gambleři, když to blbě řeknu to takhle, v jakýmkoliv týmu, v kterém jsem kdy hrál, bylo minimálně 2 až 3 lidi, kteří hodně betovali a bohužel musím říct, že pokud jste někdo, kdo hodně betuje, tak je dost velká šance, že betujete na sebe nebo na své kamarády. Tím pádem se těch kamarádů ptáte, jak to dneska cítí a už tohle je matchfixing, takže myslete si, co chcete, nebudu tady nic líkovat, ale garantuju vám, CSková scéna, i CZSK, i EU, i Tier 1 je prolezlá těma lidma. To bude všechno pro tohle video, vidíme se u dalšího. Čus, budu moc rád za odběr.